Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Live Ultralight podcast powered by Outdoor Vitals. Today, we have a very special guest on. We've got Franziska Weinheimer, who is an outdoorswoman from Germany who lived for over a quarter of a century in the state of Oregon. Since 2014, she's been sharing her adventures in the mountains with backpacking community through her blogs, guides, videos on her Hike Oregon YouTube channel. Some of you may have heard of it. It's got quite a good following there. You're from Oregon specifically. From Oregon specific trail guides to gear reviews, trip videos, you cover it all. So there's a little intro to if you haven't heard of Franziska, but you've got an awesome YouTube channel and you've been doing it for a while, it sounds like, since 2014. Is that correct?
2016 is when the YouTube channel started.
Okay.
But 2014 is when I started the Hike Oregon website. So
okay. Yeah. Okay. And if I've got my facts right, which apparently I'm not sure that I do now, I'm going to have to question everything that's here in front of me. You got started in the outdoors, kind of out of, I don't know, like maybe you're going through like a darker part of time or something in life, and you got outside and got a taste of something, and it seemed like it changed the whole trajectory of your life. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I did start in the outdoors actually when I was a kid. My dad would take me hiking and backpacking all over the world, I guess. He backpacked in Europe and been to Alaska and done all sorts of like epic trips. And then I kind of fell out of, going hiking and stuff for a while during college. And then, yeah, you are correct. I was having some life challenges, trying to find my way, going through some depression, and decided to go on a hike one day really randomly. And I just fell in love and I felt amazing and just kind of became addicted to it from there, and basically went every single week from that time on and just fell in love. So, yeah.
So that's pretty incredible that you've hiked all over the world. As you said, as a kid, you were kind of doing that. So from like what ages did you start doing like international hikes?
So, we've always had family in Germany, and I was born in Germany. So we, we've hiked in Europe quite a bit. My family's always been quite outdoorsy. So even as a small baby, they would take me on like bike packing trips and stuff like that. Where we'd stay in like hostels, we'd ride to the next town, stay in hostels, that kind of thing. So from a, toddler age, I would be doing stuff like that. And then I actually summited my first volcano here in Oregon at the age of 6. So, which is crazy to think about, because when I summit it now, I'm like, wow, this is really difficult. I don't know how I did that.
That's way incredible. I don't know how kids can do it sometimes too. It seems like, and maybe it's something to do with females, but we had a girl who was a part of our 100-mile challenge that we did through the summer. Mm-hmm. And her dad did 100 miles like total through different hikes. But the one that they ended on was hiking Kings Peak, which is, it's not a joke. Like if you're not like a hiker, like it's a decent peak. If you're a hiker, maybe there's harder ones for sure. Yeah. But like, it was way impressive. And I had him on a podcast. I don't think it's live just yet, but I was like astounded by it. So I don't know, maybe you guys just have, she was like 9 years old, blonde,
wow.
Just not, wow. you guys haven't figured out. So that's incredible. I'm also going to have to hit you up on maybe a hike near Germany. We're headed to Munich for ISPO for a show. This will be my first time to Germany. So
amazing.
I'll have to maybe pick your brain after, but
yeah.
So that's fascinating. That's really incredible. You're already hiking, summiting peaks, 6 years old. And then at some point you kind of fell out of it, right? Like you quit hiking.
Yeah, I would say after high school. So every summer my dad would, he's a professor, so he had summers off and we would go on like epic trips together. And so once I ended school, basically, I didn't have that summer break anymore. And so I was working and doing things like that. And we no longer went on our like yearly backpacking trips. So that's kind of when I fell out of it. I would say for like 4-ish years or so, 4 or 5 years until I got back into hiking.
Okay. So I think that's pretty interesting that you went on like one hike and that it like changed your life, right? Because so many times when life's not going well, things are down, or whatever it is, like it takes really consistent pressure and life changes. And a lot of times it's like little things, maybe just over and over again. Whereas like hiking is like a bigger event. You're getting out there. It's something, but like, so what happened on that hike? Like what was it that changed? And did you start like hiking every day, or like how did it have such an impact?
I'm really not sure. I think it was just something so different to what I was doing in my daily life, that we also jumped into really cold water that day. So maybe the combination of like the exercise and being outside and then jumping into this like 42-degree, like freezing water just gave me this high almost. And it got me hooked. I wanted to experience that feeling again. And so I just continued going hiking. Not sure that I've ever matched that specific feeling, but I've come close for sure.
Yeah. And did you start hiking like weekly after that? Or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
As often as I could, I would peruse my guidebooks and just like make a list of all the hikes I wanted to do. And I would just get out as often as I could. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned guidebooks. I spent a little bit of time on your website, and that seems to be something that you put together as well. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. I've always wanted to be an author of some sort. My dad is an author. My grandpa's an author. So it kind of runs in the family. And so as a little child, I knew I wanted to write books of some sort, didn't know what kind of books I wanted to write. And then when I had been doing the website for a couple of years, I was like, oh, why not write hiking guidebooks as well as the website? So I put my first book together, 2019, I think it was published, end of 2018, it was published. And then I published another one in 2020 and so forth. Yeah.
So these guidebooks, tell me a little bit about them. Like, I'll be honest, like I don't know how many guidebooks I have, but it's not many, and I don't know that I've spent a lot of time in guidebooks. So like you get a guidebook, like what's the fascinating thing to you about a guidebook? Is it the insider knowledge, or like, are you talking like pamphlets, or are you talking like a book?
Yeah, like a thick guidebook. Okay. Really? I have one right here. I can show you.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's
wow.
And they're all kind of like this. They all have like a similar format. But yeah, I mean, like this one is 245 pages. So
wow.
I guess I got started in hiking perusing the guidebooks. This was 2014. So like things like All Trails didn't exist, like all these hiking apps and numerous websites that we can peruse now didn't really exist. And so I just had some old guidebooks that my husband had laying around, and I just picked them up and looked at them. And I guess I like the way things are described in the guidebook. It's really, really detailed description of the trail, the flora, and what things you're going to see, what types of trees you're walking through, the names of the mountains that you might be seeing at the peak or the upcoming viewpoint. There's just a lot of information in like 2 pages. And you can carry it with you when you go hiking if you want to. So just having that resource was beneficial to me. And so then I got started with the website, and I found that a lot of people also wanted something tangible and not just, hey, it's on the website, but what are you going to do with that if you're out backpacking or on the trail or something? So I decided to put together the guidebooks.
I think there's some real value in that. So I have looked at like a few guidebooks and stuff. And my problem is I'm going like everywhere, right? So like your books are, like 52 hikes in Oregon, I think was the title of that one, right?
Right.
For 52 weeks. And
yeah.
So oftentimes I get like too spread out. I'm like, I need one hike in Oregon for this day. And so then I get onto these online tools and they really can, they like overwhelm you with information and underwhelm you with detail, I guess is a way to say that, where you can find 5 million trails, but you're like, oh, which one is good? And then you try to like dig deeper and you just get lost. Right.
Exactly.
So in your books, I mean, I think that's probably a big factor of it, but like, is there anything that you specifically feel like you do different or unique in like your guides?
So mine are, I would say, very themed. Besides the 52 hikes for 52 weeks, this one I think is unique just because it takes you through the year. Oregon has such different seasons. A lot of people really only hike during the summer and are kind of lost at what to do, in the spring, winter, and, fall is kind of nice too, but the spring and the winter is kind of when people have trouble finding places to hike. So this book really just like takes you through the entire year, starts at week 1, and it's like the perfect hike for that week of the year and takes you through the year if you want to do it that way. And then my other 2 books, they're themed. So it's Oregon's Best Views, because I love viewpoint hikes. I love, climbing up to that viewpoint, seeing the views. It's just some of my favorite hiking.
Since you're 6, you've been summiting, so you're addicted at that point.
I want the views. Give me the views. And then Lakes of the Cascades is my most recent book, and it's all lake hikes. So it's pretty themed. So if you love the views, pick up the views book. If you love the lakes one has a lot of like backpacking options as well. Just because a lot of the lake hikes here are great for backpacking. So, And then I guess something unique about my books is, so I have like colored topographical maps. And then in the corner, there's a QR code on the map that you can scan with your phone. And so then you have the map on your phone and you don't have to take the book with you. So I have not seen that in any other guidebooks. So I think that's pretty unique.
Yeah, that's super handy for sure. Because I kind of care about what stuff weighs a little bit. It's kind of my job.
Exactly.
And books are pretty heavy. I know whenever I go like traveling like on an airplane, I love to bring a book, and I'm like, between my laptop and the book, those things are so heavy. I don't know why I do this, but I haven't got onto like the e-reader system. I can't do like a Kindle or read on my phone. I struggle.
Well, and that way, if you have the map on your phone, you can zoom in and out too, because sometimes in the book, if I, have the whole map, the elevation lines can be really small and hard to see. So this way you can zoom in and actually see a lot of detail as well. So,
Yeah. No, that for sure makes sense. 52 hikes in 52 weeks kind of sounds like your own journey through a year. Like, is that like your first year back of hiking? Is like you just like researched 52 hikes and did that? Or is that like a culmination of just years of doing it for seasons?
Yeah, it was a culmination for sure. I came up with the idea because so many people were doing what's known as the 52 hike challenge. And I was like, why not kind of make a book kind of based on that, just because it's such a popular challenge and people love doing it. So I just kind of took years of going hiking in different seasons and kind of picking the best of each season and month and whatnot.
So I don't know if I started in the beginning here or just now, but like you've got so much hiking knowledge now, but it wasn't always that way. At first, you're kind of looking at guidebooks. What to you, like when you set out to go find a trail now, like what are you looking for? Are you looking for something new, something exciting? Are you looking for like just a specific, I want to get to a viewpoint today, or I want to get to a lake today. Like, what are you doing? Like this, I don't know, if you're going out next week or something like that, what are you going to do to figure out where you're going to go?
That's a good question. It depends on if I'm doing it for work or not. I would say 90% of my hiking is for work, like research purposes. So it's either.
Are you saying YouTube's a job? Is it a job now? You tell your parents that? No,
Well, YouTube is such a small snippet of what I do that I actually don't consider myself a YouTuber whatsoever.
Really? That's interesting.
No, I really don't.
You've been doing it for a long time and have a good sized following. So
yeah.
But the guidebooks is home to you.
Yeah, the website and the books is kind of where I would like to concentrate my time. But YouTube kind of pays the bills as well. So I can't really.
So now that this is all work to you, now this is all work to you, is it still enjoyable? 90% you said of your trips are work?
I would say 90% are work. Yes, it's enjoyable. It can get, I would say, especially in the summer months, it can get to be a lot. There's just a lot of traveling. And so I look forward to a little bit of downtime in the winter. But I know that summer here is just, it's so short that I know, like, come November, December, I'll be like wishing I was out on the trail. So I try to think about that when I'm getting overwhelmed. But yeah, if I'm just going out for fun hiking, I would say I look for, it depends on the season. If it's like winter time, I really love going to the coast where it's like foggy and moody and just beautiful, lush green. And then the ocean, it's just gorgeous here. If it's summertime, I love wildflowers and views. So if it's not, if there isn't wildfire smoke or something, I'll go for, because you got to deal with that. Then I'll look for like a wildflower meadow hike. I love that kind of thing. So. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's a big if anymore. There's been so much smoke. I was just in Montana last week, and it was pretty bad. It was wild. So, and it's kind of been that way. Like I was up in Montana last summer, kind of the same thing. It's just such a pattern now that's it's rough. But on your website, I spent some time going through that. I liked the wildflower section. I thought that was really unique. So. Kudos to that. That's really, it shows the detail, I guess, that you like to go into in all of this, which I think is really cool. But, so I want to back up just for a second and maybe just like I was watching some of your videos, right? And, you talk about gear, right? And you talk a little bit about, like, you kind of do like some vlogs where you just kind of take people through the trails that you're doing and stuff. Do you have much out there that you've talked about just like your experience with the outdoors, or like how it's impacted your life, or anything like that you ever talk about on YouTube specifically?
I go into more details about stuff like that on like my Q&A videos. But generally, no. Generally, I stick to like, lately I've been really loving just not doing the vlogs, but doing just scenic trip videos where I just pair the beautiful scenery with some nice music. Those are my favorite. They definitely don't get watched much, but those are my favorite videos to make and film. And then, the gear videos, of course, are the most popular on YouTube.
Yeah. So maybe I'm trying to figure out how to best ask you this, but I'd love to hear more, I guess, on just like doing YouTube, doing these guidebooks. The underlying theme here is that you'd like to get people outdoors, that you want to help people get outdoors and have a personal experience out there, a good experience out there. What do you think drives you to do that? Like, what are you hoping to share or give people?
Oh, that's a deep question. So the whole reason behind why I started Hike Oregon, like the website, was because I was perusing these old guidebooks. I wanted more detail as far as like driving directions. What does the trailhead look like? I feel like, because I was doing a lot of these things solo, I feel like as a solo female traveler, having those, like knowing what the trailhead looks like, knowing certain things, it's just a safety thing.
Did you have a lot of fear getting started back into hiking? Like, meaning, I say fear, but really what I mean is just like unknowns that kind of created anxieties for you or things like that to get back out there. And that's
for sure.
I've seen that like everywhere, right? And that's one of the things that I love to talk about is trying to eliminate those unknowns. But that was a big factor.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because I would Google these hikes that I found in my guidebook from, I think the guidebook was published in like 1990 or 1989 or something. Like, it was an older guidebook. And so I tried Googling some of these hikes, couldn't find any information. I wanted pictures. I wanted, things like that. Couldn't find anything. And I figured, okay, I can't be the only one having these problems. I can't be the only one wanting more information and pictures and stuff like that, knowing what I'm getting into. And so that's why I started the website with, I have so many pictures of every single hike so that people really know, like, this is what the trail head looks like. This is what the actual trail tread looks like. These are the shoes you should wear because it's rocky. That kind of thing. There's a cliff drop off on one side. Stuff like that is really important to know if you're hiking with kids or dogs or by yourself. So having that kind of detail is important, I think, for safety. And then, it just kind of went from there. And I started getting just really good feedback from people. And I think that's mostly what fuels me. Is I get a lot of emails and, messages on social media from people saying, hey, you saved my life. Hiking saved my life. And I found hiking through, your YouTube channel or through Googling whatever. And I found your website and stuff like that. So just knowing that I can help people by getting them outside is really just everything to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how you, how do you respond to that when someone, emails you and says, hiking saved my life, right? Like that's a pretty big topic.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's amazing for sure. Yeah.
So you get that, like you have this problem, right? Of you want to get out there, you see this impact it's having on your life. And then you kind of realize this gap, right? Of just, hey, people need more detail. It helps people get out there. Not everyone's a go-getter like you, So some people, they do want to wait and have all the details before they ever act. Right. And so you're helping these people get out there through these guidebooks, through your website, which is really well done. And then, so like, what's the progression of it? You've got 3 guidebooks now. Mm-hmm. Is that correct? So 3 guidebooks, and then you continue to update your website as well, it seems. And so, is the future look like, continuing to release guidebooks or what's the next step in continuing to help people with this deeper problem that you're hoping to help them with?
Yeah, I think guidebooks and just, releasing more information on the website all the time. Putting together something I started working on this summer was putting together like PCT trail guides, like just for the Oregon section, because a lot of people want to do the PCT or like a section of it, but only have like long weekends. So I decided to cut the Oregon section into like bite-sized pieces. And so I'm going to release little trail guides for like, just a long weekend, little pieces that people can do. Just make hiking and backpacking more palatable to just the everyday person. Not everyone can go ultralight. Not everyone can do a through hike. And I found, especially through my YouTube journey, that there's a lot of that kind of content out there. And it's, unless you're a through hiker, it's not relatable to the weekend backpacker. So I kind of was steering away from like doing the super ultralight, and because there's so much of that content already out there. So I'm more of an in-between, like, yes, I try to go kind of lightweight. I don't carry all the things, but I also make it so that it's like, oh yeah, this is what a weekend backpacker would carry. So.
Okay. You've caught my interest now. So I can't let you just get away with, throwing that out there, not a little more detail. So like, what's your typical base weight? Do you measure your base weight?
I used to. I don't really anymore. I just weigh the backpack before I head out the door.
So if you're going for like a 3-day weekend and no water, like, what do you think it weighs?
A 3-day weekend, no water would be like 22 pounds.
Okay. What's like your favorite things that you take that an ultralight guy would never take?
Oh, my DSLR camera.
Okay. Most YouTubers are not counting that, I guess. So that is a chunk of weight for sure.
It's like 2.5 pounds.
And easy to carry, right? I mean, don't have to protect it or keep it dry, so what else? I mean, do you take I imagine you're taking a seat?
No, I don't have a chair. I do carry my Thermarest Z-Light that I've cut in half. So it's like half of the Z-Light. And it's like
sounds like an ultralight thing to do.
But it's like a big sit pad. So yeah. I love that. And it's super lightweight. So
right. Okay. What I mean, any other luxury items that people need to hear that are just well worth taking?
Gosh, I don't know.
Oh boy.
I mean, my tent is pretty heavy.
Okay. Got like a big 4-season, stove.
It's not 4-season, but it's not an ultralight tent by any means. Neither is my sleeping bag or my sleeping pad. It all adds up,
Yeah. Oh. So speaking with this demographic, you're really targeting, long weekends, getting them out on the PCT.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. In a lot of ways, we've kind of been talking and doing a lot of the same things here in the office, but in a slightly different direction. And maybe this is indicative of like some of the personalities around the office here. But like, instead of being like, all right, we got like a long weekend, what should we do that fits a long weekend? We've like been getting into things like fast packing. Like, how can we go farther in 3 days instead of like just plan like a regular typical 3-day thing? And so, that's like more of an extremist case, I would say. I mean, after doing backpacking fast packing a couple seasons now, there's some real pros and cons to it. And there's definitely times where it's like, I would love to be able to slow down and enjoy this particular section, more.
Right.
We just did the High Line. We didn't fast pack the High Line, but we were doing about 25 miles a day. And it's just beautiful country, but it's like, man, we went through it so fast today, that type of thing. So
yeah, that's interesting, because I've actually been kind of doing the opposite, where I used to be all about like getting in as many miles as I can per day and like doing just so much mileage. And I've really kind of slowed down, I would say, the past 2 years. And like this summer, I only did one backpacking trip, which was by myself. So I just naturally hiked further. But like when I go with my friends, there was not a day we did over like 13, 14 miles, which is so unlike me. Usually, we go 15 plus. But this summer, last summer, we really just like slowed down, wanted to enjoy the scenery and the lakes and camp and just have a little more relaxing time.
Right. Are you riding on trail, or is that like purposeful? Like, are you slowing down ever to ride on trail? Or you have to slow down to document things with your camera and stuff too, but.
I don't write. I journal when I'm on the trail, just so I remember the daily things. But I don't like write specifically for like my books or anything, When I'm out there, I feel like I'm on vacation. I try to be on vacation, even though I'm working.
Yes.
But I try to have a little bit of downtime.
Gotcha. I'm gonna lose the thought here. I'll have to switch gears. So, well, I was gonna ask this. When you kind of mentioned that, like, there's a lot of content on ultralight backpacking or through hiking, a lot of content, right? It's interesting. We went out to trail days in Damascus this year for the AT, and there's these people like that they were just so in tune with like the YouTubers, right? So this one lady came up and she had me sign her backpack, right? So, but she had signatures all over, and she started listing off all of these YouTubers, and I was like, how come I don't know these people? Like, I feel like I'm in this niche and I don't know these people, right? And then I like talked to another guy, and kind of the same conversation. He's talking to me, and then he's like, have you seen this guy? I knew this guy. And so I started to look some of them up, and there's like it seems like there's a ton of channels that are like maybe below 10,000 subscribers.
Up and coming. Yeah.
Up and coming, or it's just so narrow and niche focused that like maybe that's it for those particular YouTubers. I don't know, but it really surprised me. And then I see guys like, a friend of mine, Dan Becker, who's like really speaking to the masses, and he's having phenomenal success. And so I'm curious, sometimes I think sometimes I might create a lot of content, or just around the office, we might create a lot of content that's like focused on what we're focused on at the time. And it can be really hard to like back up to being full in beginner mode again, I guess, and like, I don't know, like why I would buy a down sleeping bag versus a synthetic sleeping bag. I don't know why I would like, what's a freestanding tent? You know what I mean? Like, what is it? Instead of like the pros and cons, it's like, no, just what is it? That would help me right now. Right. So did you ever like back up your content? It kind of sounded like you might have to broaden it, I guess is how you said it more like. And did you find that you got more comments or feedback when you changed or pivoted a little bit?
Yeah, I would say so. When I started the channel in 2016, I would say the first 2 or 3 years, I really did just a whole gamut of things. So I did like backpacking for beginners series. I did, the whole tent thing, how to pick your sleep system. I really did it all, just to kind of get people into it. And because I know I was struggling with it when I restarted backpacking, there was all this new gear, and I just kind of like bought whatever. I wasn't really doing a ton of research. And then I went on a couple trips with that gear, and I was like, oh crap, I should have done more research, because there's all this stuff out here and this stuff is not working for me. So that's when I started doing more research. And that's when I was like, okay, I can put this on YouTube because of my experience, and I can hopefully help some people so they don't waste their money like I did.
Yeah. It's true. It's really easy to get the wrong stuff in the beginning. I mean, I think everyone has done it. I don't know if it's like a rite of passage or if there's a way around it, but I definitely have done it, and I feel like just about everyone has. But I mean, I probably still do it. I just don't look at it that way. Like, meaning I'm always like cycling out gear. You know what I mean? It doesn't really change.
Right.
It feels like it changes because like those first moves that you do are so substantial. But
exactly. Yeah. And expensive, like the tent, the sleeping bag, the sleeping pad. I don't know how many sleeping pads I went through before I found my like, okay, this is perfect. And even then it's like, it's not perfect because it's actually so bulky that when I take my Outdoor Vitals backpack, I can't actually fit all my stuff in there. And so when I take that backpack, I have to take my smaller sleeping pad. So it's like, it changes like with every trip.
These are legitimate concerns that need to get addressed here. Well, let me ask you this. So I was recently on a trip, and there was a new backpacker on the trip with us. And, I was kind of talking about sleep, and we'd set him up pretty good. Like, he had a good system, good bag, good pad. And, at the end of the trip, I just asked him, like, so how did you sleep on this trip? And he's like, it was good. It was better, but not great. And so like, we're kind of like, I was probing, and eventually I was just like, like you're not going to sleep like you're home on your mattress, right? Like you're going to wake up, you're going to roll over, you're going to toss and turn. Like that's 100% to be expected. And if you're thinking it's going to be like that, you're going to be disappointed every night, right?
Yeah.
And I honestly feel like the light bulb kind of turned on for him. Like, oh, like I was expecting to be able to sleep like 8 hours straight, like I do at home in my bed, right? So I don't know if you also have that had to what do you say, adjust to that in the beginning. But I wonder how many new backpackers do think that, like, think that they're gonna have like a 6 straight hour sleep cycle on a mat in the woods, you know?
I'm lucky if I get 4 consecutive hours. I mean, that's like, I got a good sleep.
Yeah. Honestly, I probably sleep the best in the winter. And that's just because the sound is so deadening from the snow, right? Like,
interesting. I've never slept in the snow, so I don't know.
Oh man. Well, there's another one to add to the list for your next guidebook. So I saw a video that said that you did 77 hikes in 1 year, right? And it was like this quick recap. Is that an average year for you to do 77 hikes?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty average. Like 70 to 100, depending on if I'm doing book research that year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's incredible. I mean, that means you've just done hundreds of hikes all in Oregon, correct? Like,
mostly.
Are you going to move one day? Or are you going to be like the biggest expert that ever lived in Oregon?
I would prefer not to move away from the state. I hike a lot in California too. I love California. So, I do a lot in the Sierras. My dream is to hike the JMT. So that's kind of in the works for a couple years from now. And what
does it take to be able to hike that? For someone who doesn't know, like the process of getting onto the JMT, the John Muir Trail, for those that might not even know what JMT is.
I mean, it's difficult. It's hard. It's not easy hiking. So I would recommend training. And then
isn't there a lottery system? And
the permit,
I mean, it's pretty competitive.
You gotta get around. Yeah, exactly.
How difficult is it to get the permit? Do you know?
I don't know. We haven't tried yet. So our plan is to do it in 2024. So we have a little time to plan, and we're also
going to need a guidebook on that.
We're also going southbound. So I have a feeling that's going to better our chances for getting permits, because most people prefer to go northbound. So, but we want to end at Mount Whitney and kind of end the trip that way. I think that would be epic. So we're going to go southbound. Yeah.
Well, I think we're slightly different in the sense that you're like trying to promote hiking in Oregon and like hiking in your backyard. And I'm like,
stay away.
Utah is full. No, just kidding. Don't come here. No.
So I do get a lot of backlash from other Oregonians. I would say those are my most occurring negative comments on all social media platforms is, really? You are ruining Oregon. It's people like you that make this, like just horrible things. Yeah, I get that a lot.
It's tough to be a creator. I always say this, you can't create anything without putting your neck out there to get the backlash, right? Especially in today's day of just keyboard warriors and people that'll say anything behind a computer screen or their phone screen.
And I understand I'm having an impact on, the nature, the wilderness and whatnot. And I do bring more people out onto the trails. But I think what makes me feel okay about it is that I'm doing it in a way that also promotes, leave no trace. And I always try at least once a week on social media platforms to, spread some kind of leave no trace message, educate, make videos about it, stuff like that. So I feel like that's the way to do it versus just being like, hey, go out there and And then what? Those people have no idea. So
I think that's great that you're trying to spread the Leave No Trace message as well. It's honestly something that I'd like to see us get better at here at Outdoor Vitals. But I think I was also raised in that, like, from the background of like, hey, we've got our tiny little rural town. You know, I grew up in a very rural situation, and you know, all right, I won't call anyone out, but like my family members would be like, they'd see like a California license plate up on the mountain and they'd be like mad about it. You know what I mean? Like mad about it. And then like, you know, and it just kind of escalates from there. And I think as I grew up, I did a lot more traveling than most people in my family and saw a lot more. I think broadened my horizons a little bit more. And I think coming back, it was just like, man, you can't think that way. Like that's an impossible way to think. And what makes us different from being born in Utah versus California versus, you know, Malaysia versus United States, whatever it is, you know? And so it's like, I really think that's a terrible way to go about it, because there's just no doubt about it. Like there's more people are getting out, more people are exploring, and that's their right, you know? And so all we can really do is try to embrace it and adapt, right? Because nothing will ever stay the same forever. And so, I think your messaging behind that, I think is really good. And like I said, I think that's something that we honestly need to try to get better at, is just the educational side of leaving no trace as much as anything else.
And really, it's not our land at all. We really don't, you know, the people that are like, I was born here and this is my backyard. It's really not. It's belongs to the natives. So it's like.
And before that, you know what I mean? It's like everyone is a blip in the bucket, you know?
Right. So no one really has any say. And
yeah.
We can do is take care of it and, you know, enjoy it and take care of the land as we are enjoying it.
Totally. Yep. I totally agree. And back to hiking the trail backwards, the JMT. So we did you went to Highline Trail. And we did it, I guess, apparently we did it backwards this year. So we started last year going east to west, and we got, like 70 or 80 miles in and had to get off trail due to snow and conditions. And so we went back this year and we're like, well, let's do it the other way. And, at first we like thought it was amazing. We did like this, you know, the first 50, 60 miles, it was amazing. And then we got to like the last 40 miles. And, it's funny because we had people on trail telling us like one guy was kind of grumpy and he's like, you're doing it backwards. And we're just like, all right, like, see ya, you know, and, but like, no one, we'd ask people after a while, we sort of asked people like, have you seen anyone going down the trail this way? And they're like, no one's doing it that direction. And, anyways, we got to like the last 40 miles, and the last like day and a half, especially, you like drop out of the high country and you're just in the trees for like 30 plus miles. And, we realized like, there's a reason to do it the other way. So I think your way of like ending at Mount Whitney seems pretty like you're ending at like this really high point in the trail. And there's some benefit to that. The last day of our trail was just nothing but like, get down the trail, get off the trail, think about every piece of pizza and hamburger you could think of. And, whereas if we'd done it the other way, you would have ended in like some of the most beautiful scenery in Utah. So, I think that's a good way to plan that trip out. So, all right, we've turned up some time here, so I don't want to go over on time, but I do want to still ask a few questions here. When I say favorite backpacking trip, what pops into your head?
I would say the Three Sisters Loop. It's here in Central Oregon, and it's a loop that circumnavigates the Three Sisters, which are three volcanoes, Hope, Faith, and Charity. And they are spectacular mountains. People summit them, but you can also go around them. So we did 60 miles. And when I think back on this trip, I mean, it has everything. It has views, it has creeks and rivers, wildflowers, lava. It has like some snow fields. Like it really has everything. And when I think back on it, there's very, very few backpacking trips that I go on that are like perfect in the sense where like nothing goes wrong. There's nothing like absolutely, there's always something on a backpacking trip where you're like, this was like absolutely perfect in every single way. And so to this day, it's like my favorite trip.
You go back and do it, or is it like sacred? Like you don't go back?
Yeah, I haven't done it since. Yeah, I have no need to at this point. It's just, that was the perfect trip.
Yeah. No, that sounds spectacular. How big of a trip is that? It's like a 2-night trip or
miles. I think we did 4 nights. Okay. Yeah.
It's a pretty good loop. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So let's flip that backwards then. If that's kind of like your best trip ever, like what's the opposite of that? Like what's the worst experience you've had on trip?
The worst backpacking trip was quite recently, actually in July. And it was, I had picked a loop in the Wallowa Mountains, and there's like a popular area of the Wallowas and then a, I guess, not so much used area of the Wallowas. I was not aware of this. I thought the Wallowas were just like so many trails and they get a ton of use and all of them are amazing. Not the case. We did a loop that before we even got to the trailhead, we were on like plan C or D. I mean, that's how the trip started.
Just trying to get to the trailhead was so hard.
And so it just went downhill from there. This trail that was on a map, like a physical map that I had, should never be on this map. It basically was no longer a trail. So much route finding. People had not hiked here in years, I'm assuming. We came across just sketchy snow embankments and just down trees all over the place. And it was kind of a nightmare. So
Yeah. That'll turn a trip fast. We've got some kind of rolling jokes around the office here that like, we don't like to go through like any burned areas. Right. I think I took Brigham through like one burn one time that was too much for him. And now he can't handle it. But it'll absolutely just derail plans. And
it zaps your energy when you have to climb over those down trees or find a way around with the backpack. It just kills you. We had like a certain amount of mileage planned every single day, and we just weren't going to be able to do that just because of the time it was taking us to hike and just the energy zap. It was crazy.
Yeah, I had to learn pretty early in life that like I grew up hiking a lot, not on trails, just hiking kind of wherever. And so when I started hiking on trails, and there's like those opportunities where you're like, well, I could drop all the way down and climb all the way back up this, or I could just cut across right here. Right. And this is in like really rural areas, of Utah. And every time I tried to like shortcut anything, I'll do a mile here instead of 2 miles over here. Right. It was the worst ideas I've ever had, like every time. Because it does, like every step you have to like watch where you're placing your foot. You got to climb over this. You got to, make your own switchbacks or whatever it is. And it absolutely zaps energy and zaps you mentally and sounds pretty bad. I thought you were going to say you like forgot something really important, but
no, that's never happened to me. Thank God.
Yeah.
I did leave my house a couple years ago to do like a 40-mile loop. I was already on the highway, like just driving, and somehow miraculously it popped in my head. I had sprayed a bunch of gear with permethrin and had left it hanging. So I didn't take it. It wasn't in my bag. So like my puffy coat, my backpacking sun shirt, just like a bunch of things I had left hanging. So that would have been really bad had I forgotten that.
Would have felt good. You would have had like 5 less pounds in your pack for a little bit. And
I would have been freezing without the vital puffy coat.
So I think one thing that like is still fascinating to me is just that you got started backpacking so early in life. And maybe it's just top of mind for me, and maybe it's just a theme that I've got going on for my life. But like going and summiting at 6 years old and doing some of these hikes at that age is really unique. And I'm curious if you have any insight on what made you even like want to go hiking at that age or care about hiking, right? Or like, right. I mean, we live, one of my drivers, I would say is I think we live in a day and age where there's so much technology. There's so much grabbing our attention all the time. And you know, that's just sucking us in. And then, you know, the yin to that yang, the opposite there that you need is that disconnect and getting outdoors and into nature and being able to sit with nothing happening and being able to disconnect in that way. And so as I see, you know, my own kids are getting older, I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and she's 3-year-old. And I just see that. And I'm like, when I see these kids doing these things at such a young age and I take my boy out, you know, it's very interesting to put those pieces together and see what would really drive him to want to do that more often. You know, like I know he loves to come and spend time with me, and I'll usually try to like make it about going to a lake or something like that that he's going to care about. But I'm curious if there's anything that you can remember that stood out to you as a kid.
Honestly, what stands out is that I didn't really enjoy it when I was a kid.
Oh no, backfire here. No.
I think it was, I mean, I'm so happy that my dad like took me on these trips. Of course, it was amazing, the experiences I had. But I don't recall loving it. I really don't.
More his idea than what you wanted to be doing, maybe.
Right. Of course, it's always great when you like get to a lake and you can relax and swim and do fun things like that. But yeah, I don't remember loving being there at the moment. I always liked it at the end, like, hey, I did that. That was cool. Or you'd go back to school as a kid and like talk about your summer. And it was like by far the coolest thing that anyone else did. You know, everyone would be like, oh yeah, I went to summer camp. Well, I went to Austria and backpacked in the Alps, right? Like that's pretty cool to brag about as a kid. But yeah, at the time, just it wasn't super my thing.
Yeah. It's so interesting how it came
I didn't
full
really
circle.
enjoy it until like high school or so. That's kind of when I started liking it more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how that just came full circle for you in such a way. Right.
Yeah.
I know I kind of had some of those experiences too, where, it wasn't until I got into college and started to, I don't know, experience the outdoors how I wanted to experience them, instead of being the youngest in a family and everyone else had ideas that they were higher up the food chain. You know what I mean? And that really made a difference for me when I was like, no, I'm going to call the shots. I'm going to go where I want to go and do it how I want to do it. And then, man, it was just like a light bulb, I think, clicked on and in my experience of how it kind of shifted. But,
it also gave me a new perspective, I guess, on, how much work my dad went through to plan these trip itineraries.
Yeah.
Because for me, it was just like, oh yeah, we went on this trip. Looking back on it, I mean, we went for weeks at a time to these different places. That's a lot of trip planning that I know now takes so much time and effort and research and wow.
Yeah. And you got to like plan. I would feel like I'd need to plan even more if I'm taking kids, right? Like,
right. Exactly.
So much more, probably more contingency plans in place and things like that. Yeah. That's really incredible. Bucket list hike. If you could go anywhere and hike.
I would love to hike in New Zealand. I would say that's bucket list area to go to for sure. Yep. And then of course, CMT. I can't wait to do that. So.
Yes. That'll be awesome. Biggest thing you've seen change in your backpacking gear?
Biggest thing that has changed.
Is it could be one piece of gear or like an overall theme?
I mean, I would say my weight, just because like when I first got into backpacking again, you know, from being a child to rebuying all the gear when like 2016, 2017. I mean, I was hiking out with like 45 pounds on my back. So now to go from that.
So you're ultralight at 20. I mean,
right,
that's
to me,
impressive.
to me, that's a huge thing. So yeah, I would say my weight, just like knowing what's necessary, but also feeling like I can be comfortable.
Yeah. Why has that mattered to you? Why have you kind of like changed that? What's the biggest benefit you've seen to that gear adaptation?
Oh, just I can hike longer miles. It's not uncomfortable. I don't get blisters on my feet. I mean, when I had the 45 pounds on my back, I got blisters like on the bottoms of my feet from like
Just
the weight.
So much. Yeah.
And I mean, you can't walk. It's so painful. So yeah, getting rid of that weight was amazing. I can't imagine what a 12-pound base weight feels like. That sounds incredible. But I know personally, I would not be comfortable. So I've kind of, I meet in the middle somewhere.
That's good. At least you've got the experience to have dialed in your system, right? And it's really not about, because even me, right? I mean, we make ultralight backpacking gear and whatnot, but like there's guys who would look at my base weight and say it's way too heavy, right? But I think people judge way too harshly with sometimes that stuff because it matters where you're at. Matters. Heck, I'm 6'2". Like everything I own is long wide. You know what I mean? Like it's I don't have the, just different things like that. Instead of a 30 degree or a 50 degree setup, I'm usually a 15 degree setup because it can freeze at any moment in time here. We can get snowed off a trail in August apparently. And so there's all those considerations. So for me, I'm typically sitting, base weight between 10 and 12 pounds. And I feel good about that. But other guys be like, well, I'm down to 7, so it's really finding what you're comfortable with and what you love. And, so I hope people, recognize that for what it is, but last thing here, I've been told that you're writing a new book. Is that correct? No?
I've maybe started some research for a book down the line.
Okay. What
I am working on is just not a full book, but like a little 10 hike pamphlet for like local towns. So like 10 best hikes near Eugene, 10 best hikes near Bend, that kind of thing. So just like little pamphlets that people can pick up if they're, traveling to that town or if they're tourists or something like that. So, because I know tourists aren't going to pick up a full guidebook. So
a year-long guidebook. I don't know if you're a tourist, if you're there for a year. So I have
to kind of cater to a different audience if I want to cater to people traveling here.
Right. So where's the best place for people to find you? Do you want them to go check out your website? I think it's hikeoregon.net, right?
Yeah. .com is for sale for like $15,000.
$15,000. You're probably just driving that price up every year by not buying it,
For sure. Oh yeah. Cause when I first started Hike Oregon, it was for sale, I think for like $2,500. And I should like looking back, I should have bought it. But obviously I was just starting a website. Why would I spend, But every year it gets more and more. They keep trying to call me. Do you want to buy this? I'm like, no. And I know no one else is going to buy it. So I know I'm safe. Like no one's ever going to spend that money on hikeoregon.com. So I know I'm safe and it's all good.
They're just trying to wait you out, but so go check out her website. It's really well done. I think there's a little bit of something for anyone on there. Whether you want to just look at her, her section on wildflowers, different things to see out there, whether it's to pick up the guidebooks. I think you even had an option on there to have you plan an itinerary and trail for people.
That is correct.
So if that's something you're looking for, you're either flying into Oregon or you're, you're from Oregon area and want a very well-planned itinerary. I imagine you could put together a phenomenal itinerary, but, Hey, go check her out. Obviously, we've talked a little bit too. She's got a YouTube channel, and I would guess probably some other social media channels like on Instagram. So go check her out. We really appreciate you coming on. It's been my pleasure to interview you and to get to know you a little bit better. I know Derek has talked with you for quite a while and worked with you a little bit, but it's always nice to be able to learn a little bit more about your backstory. And I'm sure that our listeners will find some value in this. So one other thing, just quickly before we close up the podcast here, for those of you that have not yet reviewed the podcast, I really appreciate you guys going and reviewing that. Obviously that helps us in developing what content, helps us get seen and reviewed. So if you enjoyed this content, please go review it. We did have a 5-star iTunes review come in. It just says, love the deep dives. Enjoyed hearing how different pieces of gear have been developed, fabricated, and tested in the field. You can definitely tell that OV puts a lot of effort to getting quality end results. Keep it up. So I appreciate that review. If you haven't reviewed the podcast, go check it out. But with that, we'll go ahead and close this up. Thanks again for being here. Make sure you're subscribed, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.